Or £8? You better watch out, dreadlocks. You better watch out, because we are come for you. Sorry. It's my mother's tongue again. It comes through. You'd better watch out, because we're not playing. We're real, and we are a terror. And the procedure will be parliamentary. Rastafari.
Listen, I think it's great for boxing. It was a fight that, historically made sense because, it was a fight that when was first announced, you thought it was a fight that was always a fantasy and never going to be a reality. The fight was announced because Conor Benn was boxing down at welterweight, and Chris Eubank Jr. has boxed as high as super middleweight, where he was probably at his best at super middleweight. And then for the last few years, he's been boxing down at middleweight. You never felt the fight was going to happen, and then we get the announcement the fight is happening, and obviously the disappointment with the fight being cancelled and the controversy surrounding that made this fight even bigger now.
Do you favour Eubank in this fight, given the size and the experience?
The reason why I favour him is because he's been more consistent, he's been busier recently, and Conor hasn't. I've always been a big fan of Conor Benn. I think Conor Benn, I keep saying again, he was one of the fastest improving fighters I saw until his career came to a sort of a stop. And the problem is, the best years of his life, have we missed the development of this young man? We don't know, but I don't know what he's been doing behind the scenes.
The highly anticipated bout between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn is set to electrify the boxing world. With the fight scheduled for April 26th at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, this showdown is more than just a match. It's the continuation of a historic family rivalry. The pressure of legacy, combined with a contentious rehydration clause, adds layers of intensity to this clash. Box Eye Hub will keep you updated with every twist and turn leading up to fight night. Chris Eubank Sr. issued a warning to Conor Benn, cautioning him to watch out dreadlocks. This statement encapsulates the intensity and personal stakes of this fight. Eubank Sr.'s comment is a reminder of the fierce rivalry that dates back to his battles with Nigel Benn. Now, their sons carry that same fire, with Eubank Sr. subtly asserting that his lineage carries an edge. This sets the tone for a fight steeped in history and pride.
Or £8? You better watch out, dreadlocks. You better watch out, because we are come for you. Sorry. It's my mother's tongue again. It comes through. You'd better watch out, because we're not playing. We're real, and we are a terror. And the procedure will be parliamentary. Rastafari.
Nigel Benn challenged Chris Eubank Jr., stating that if Eubank Jr. is so confident, he should take the fight, promising it won't be boring. Benn's statement reflects his unwavering belief in his son's ability to make the fight captivating. It's a call for Eubank Jr. to back up his bravado in the ring, further fueling the narrative of family honor at stake.
So you know what? It's not even about that. If he really feels like it's a boring fight, take the fight. Yeah. Take the fight. Don't give it all Charlie Big Bananas. Take the fight. We'll sign a contract tomorrow. So it's like, you said it's a boring fight, it's a yawn. Mate, a yawn. Oh my gosh. Take the fight, Mr. Eubanks. Take the fight if you're that confident, because we're very, very confident. So let's not play around, take the fight.
Gareth A. Davies confirmed that after 2 years of delays, the fight is finally happening. Scheduled for April 26th, the bout will take place at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The prolonged anticipation has only heightened the stakes, making this clash one of the most awaited events in recent boxing history. Fans are eager to witness the culmination of a rivalry that has been brewing for years.
Tonight, now two guys who've been dreaming of fighting each other for about 2.5 years because it was cancelled in October 2022.
Yep.
2.5 years. Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. It's on. The highly anticipated fight will be on the 26th of April. We knew it was Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but it was confirmed yesterday. I think it was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we know we've got this megalithic event. We must say as well, it was organised and secured, if you like, by Turki Al-Sheikh, the most influential figure in boxing right now.
Spencer Oliver believes this fight is monumental for boxing. He described the initial cancellation as a major disappointment, but noted that the delay has only added to its significance. This fight represents more than just a clash of two fighters. It's a historic event that resonates deeply with fans of the sport.
Listen, I think it's great for boxing. It was a fight that, historically made sense because, it was a fight that when it was first announced, you thought it was a fight that was always a fantasy and never going to be a reality. The fight was announced because Conor Benn was boxing down at welterweight, and Chris Eubank Jr. had boxed as high as super middleweight, where he was probably at his best at super middleweight. And then for the last few years, he's been boxing down at middleweight. You never felt the fight was going to happen, and then we get the announcement the fight is happening, and obviously the disappointment with the fight being cancelled and the controversy surrounding that made this fight even bigger now.
Gareth A. Davies and Spencer Oliver agree that this fight is a continuation of a family feud that started with Eubanks Sr. and Nigel Benn. The fathers' legendary battles add a layer of historical importance, making this fight a must-watch for anyone who loves boxing. The legacy of their rivalry now rests on their son's shoulders.
It is enormous. Anyone that doesn't want to be there doesn't love boxing.
100%. Look, the family feud goes back way back, with Chris Eubanks Sr. and Nigel Benn, and we know the history between those two
and
iconic
that'll all be
figures.
Regurgitated.
Of course it will.
Million pay-per-view.
Of course, without a doubt, it'll smash 1 million pay-per-views. Without a doubt, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whatever you think about Conor Benn getting his license back, whether that's a good thing, bad thing, people will watch it. And Chris Eubank Jr.
Frank Smith confirmed the existence of a rehydration clause for this fight. This stipulation, requiring fighters to meet a second-day weigh-in limit, adds another layer of complexity. The clause has sparked debate about its fairness and potential impact on the fighter's performance, particularly for Eubank Jr., who is naturally the bigger man.
Now, you've gone on record, Frank, saying it's not a rehydration clause. So someone's not telling the truth. Frank, what is it?
It's a second-day weigh-in, which is quite standard in boxing. The IBF do it for all of their title fights. So essentially, you have your pre-weigh-in on the Friday for this fight, that both fighters will weigh in at 160. And then on the Saturday, there's a set weight that they'll come in at a certain time for. But I think the term rehydration clause should really be said as a second day weigh-in. That's the term usually used for it. It's not something that's just new for this fight. The original fight was made at 157 pounds. This is made at 160. This is Chris's natural weight. It's a big jump up for Conor Benn, coming up 2 weight divisions, and I think Chris isn't a huge middleweight himself. So I don't think the talk of a 170 is going to be an issue anyway, being completely honest. I'm not in his camp, and look, he wouldn't have agreed it if he didn't feel comfortable with it.
Savannah Marshall believes that the rehydration clause gives Eubank Jr. an advantage due to his size. She predicts that the weight cut will not significantly hinder him, making him the likely favorite. Her analysis highlights the strategic considerations that fighters must navigate beyond just their skills in the ring.
I think Chris Eubank's a bit too big, but we don't have the ins and outs of the rehydration and that sort of thing, or what weight it's at. So I think
it's £10 rehydration.
Is it £10 at 160? Yeah, so I think Chris Eubank's a little bit too big.
Frank Smith explained that while the first fight was set at 157 pounds, this one will be at 170. Eubank Jr.'s decision to accept this weight reflects his confidence and willingness to take risks. This flexibility demonstrates his determination to prove himself, despite the challenges posed by the clause.
Around a second day weigh-in. I'm not saying Chris agreed to it then, but it's like everything. Everything's a negotiation, isn't it? The first fight was 157, it's now at 160. Conor's coming up 2 weight divisions. He's agreed to do that from 157 to 160. I'm not saying the fight would have happened if it wasn't 160, but that's part of the negotiations. Chris is as amenable and agreed to do this. He didn't have to do it. He's a big man. He can decide. He can make his own decision.
Johnny Nelson favors Eubank Jr. due to his consistency and activity, but acknowledges Conor Benn's rapid improvement. He notes that Benn's inactivity leaves questions about his current form, making this fight even more intriguing. Both fighters have something to prove, adding to the suspense.
Do you favour Eubank in this fight, given the size and the experience?
The reason why I favour him is because he's been more consistent, He's been busier recently, and Conor hasn't. I've always been a big fan of Conor Benn. I think Conor Benn, I keep saying again, he was one of the fastest improving fighters I saw until his career came to a sort of a stop. And the problem is, the best years of his life, you know, we missed the development of this young man. We don't know, but I don't know what he's been doing behind the scenes.
Darren Barker highlighted the immense pressure on both fighters to uphold their family legacies. Neither can afford to lose, as the stakes are deeply personal. The weight of their father's reputations looms large, adding psychological intensity to the physical battle.
Well, first off, I was lucky enough to watch and be a fan of their dads when they boxed, so I'm aware of the rivalry from their fathers, and it's obviously translated now into the sons. The hatred for one another is that somewhat of that of the fathers. They just never got on, and it's the same with Conor and Chris. They just don't get on. They really don't like each other, and I tell you what, there's a lot of pressure on these fighters because neither will want to lose to one another. You know, it would really be a tough one to swallow if they lost to one another.
Dalton Smith questioned whether the fight's weight dynamics would benefit Benn or Eubank Jr. Benn moving up 2 weight classes versus Eubank dropping 10 pounds creates an intriguing scenario. The outcome will hinge on how well each fighter adapts to these changes.
Benn Eubank obviously signed. Bit of confusion maybe on this rehydration clause. What can you tell us? Is that 170 on the day, or is it actually when they step into the ring they can't be heavier than 170?
I'm not sure how much we can talk about it. All I can say is it's more than safe. It's a number that is completely different to the first time, and it's a number that doesn't pose absolutely any problems whatsoever.
Ben Shalom defended the rehydration clause as a safe and reasonable compromise. He emphasized its necessity for ensuring fairness while maintaining the competitive balance of the fight. This perspective sheds light on the logistical challenges of organizing such a high-profile bout.
Benn Eubank obviously signed. Bit of confusion maybe on this rehydration clause. What can you tell us? Is that 170 on the day, or is it actually when they step into the ring they can't be heavier than 170?
I'm not sure how much we can talk about it. All I can say is it's more than safe. It's a number that is completely different to the first time, and it's a number that doesn't pose absolutely any problems whatsoever.
Carl Frock expressed disinterest in the fight, criticizing Eubank Jr.'s performances. His skepticism adds a contrasting voice to the overall excitement, highlighting the polarizing opinions surrounding this matchup. Frock's remarks underline the pressure on Eubank Jr. to prove his critics wrong.
It's a shame, isn't it? Well,
shame.
Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. That will be out there, wouldn't it?
Conor Benn, Chris Eubank, will it? Is
well, I think it's highly likely,
potentially,
but it's not guaranteed.
Well, to be honest, it can be out there for all I care, because it's not, for me, it's not a fight I want to see.
Right, not excited
Chris
by that.
Eubank Jr. is 35 years old, well past his best. What's he ever done? Lost to every time he stepped up.
Lost to George Groves, didn't he?
Lost to George Groves, lost to Billy Joe Saunders.
Yeah.
So every time he's stepped up, he's got found out. He got fucking ironed out by Liam Smith.
Yeah.
Battered.
Yeah.
I know he got him in the rematch, but Liam Smith was dead on scales. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, they're talking about Chris Eubank, Canelo.
Yeah, that's a hard one to visualise, isn't it? I mean,
it's just
although Canelo does kind of pick and choose.
Listen, it's an easy night's work for Canelo. Let's be honest. That's what it is. So I've got nothing against Chris Eubank. I know what he's up to. I know his game, and people want to see him because of his dad and the name. And Benn Eubank's a big fight.
Yeah.
But it's going to be for nothing.
Frank Warren revealed ongoing legal issues related to the fight. Although the specifics are censored, his criticism of Eubank Jr. adds another layer of drama. This situation underscores the complexities and controversies that often accompany high-stakes boxing events.
Well, as you mentioned, there's no love lost between yourself and Chris Eubank. Is there still a legal issue between the two?
Yeah, I've issued proceedings against him.
Wow. So that could be a distraction for him heading into this fight, potentially.
I couldn't give it...
That's what I would expect you to say. Just one final question on this fight. As you said, it was in the O2 when it was first scheduled. All the controversies happened since, and now they're talking about putting it in a stadium. What does that tell us about the main attraction for this fight?
It tells you that people want to watch it.
I've got to be honest, I don't pay a lot of attention. I've given my opinion of him, you know. He builds himself as the next generation, and he's 35 years of age. And You know, he had an opportunity to fight in a major fight to find out, you know, to me, how good he is against Hamza or Denzel Bentley. Both really good fights. We'll see.
Well, you mentioned on the topic...
He's not that... His dad had been retired for 3 years by now. At his age.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. And he'd had 20 world title fights.
Yeah. Is it a bit of a what if with his career?
Not for me, it's not.
True.
It's who gives a fuck?
Chris Eubank Jr. lashed out at Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, and Frank Smith, accusing them of exploiting him financially. His fiery comments reflect the tension and animosity surrounding the fight, adding a personal dimension to the professional rivalry.
Because every other promoter out here is a scumbag. That's why. You know, you've got Frank Warren behind me, been lying and cheating his way through boxing for the last couple decades. Sued me for a couple $100,000 a few years ago, so obviously I was never going to go with him. You know, the guy's a scumbag. Kalle Sauerland, you know, had me locked up.
Speak up, I can't hear you.
Kalle Sauerland had me locked up in a terrible contract for the last few years, squeezing money out of me at every opportunity. Scumbag. Eddie Hearn, Frank Smith, you know, they did everything they could to try and make this fight against Conor Benn still go ahead.
Scumbag.
Still go ahead.
Why'd you fight Hamza Sharad, scumbag?
After knowing that they, that he was on steroids. Scumbags, you know. I would say the only promoter that I know for sure isn't a scumbag is His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh. You know, this is a man who isn't trying to take money from fighters. He isn't trying to use lawyers and accountants to lock fighters up in slave contracts. You know, he's a man of God. He's a man of religion. That's what's most important to the people of Saudi Arabia. He just wants to put the biggest fights on, the best events on, and pay fighters what they're worth. And as a fighter, you know, it's a blessing to be a fighter at this moment in time, because this is the first time we've ever had a promoter like this in the history of boxing. And you know, Ben Shalom's a very cool guy too.
This fight is not just a clash of two fighters, but a battle of legacies, pride, and determination. The rehydration clause and family history make it a compelling narrative that boxing fans won't want to miss. As the date approaches, the anticipation continues to build. Stay tuned to Boxy Hub for the latest updates and insights into this historic showdown.